So you can't have a Tesla in a cold weather climate. Well, I think there's some misinformation out there about that. And I know there's several people that believe that if you live in a cold weather climate, for some reason you're not going to be able to have a Tesla. Now, you may notice, I guess I should tell you first of all where I am and what's going on. This is not my garage. These are not my vehicles. I am actually on a little, I guess you'd call it vacation, I'm not quite sure. So I'm not home, I'm away from my Tesla. My Tesla is sitting in my garage, way down in deep South Texas, plugged in and maintaining, I guess, which is something that you can do with the Tesla. You leave it plugged in, it'll just kind of keep the battery where it's supposed to be, and you don't have to deal with a discharge, or much discharge, I guess. And I had actually thought about not plugging it in. I was going to be gone for quite a while, and maybe just leaving it go, right? But in doing some research, it can lose about 1.5 or 2% of charge per week. And I was going to be gone long enough that that could be a problem. So I decided not to do that. I did plug it into my wall charger at home, and it should be just fine. Now, what about this climate thing, right? I'm actually in Ohio right now, and Ohio, of course, gets winter. They have winter from about, I would say these days, November-ish through about maybe into April, March, something like that. So they have several months of cold weather. And you remember last year, there was this big to-do about Teslas pulling up to charging stations and not being able to charge because the chargers didn't work due to the cold weather climate, or the batteries drain so fast because in the cold weather, it drains faster, I suppose. Now, in Ohio, as I mentioned, they do have winter. And I will tell you that I have seen way more Teslas on the road here in Ohio than I have ever seen where I live in deep South Texas. Now, you would think in South Texas, where it's hot, I mean really hot, warm all the time, pretty much, you would see more Teslas there, right? And I think the reason you don't is not because of the climate, it's because of the infrastructure, something I've talked about on the channel a few times, and I'm going to get into something else. I had thought about taking the Tesla on this trip, driving it up here to Columbus, Ohio from deep South Texas, but I decided not to, and it's really due to infrastructure, more so charging times, I guess. You know, it's always funny to me, a lot of Tesla owners will try to justify the longer time that it takes to charge up as opposed to getting gas, and that, you know, by the time you pull up and plug in and you can go inside, use the restroom, this is on trips of course, use the restroom, get something to eat, look around wherever you're at, anything like that, that will burn or waste, really, the time that it takes for your Tesla to charge up. And you can do this every, in my case, 272 miles. That would be a drag, right? That adds, I believe it's about, I think it's about 25% to the time that you would have to spend in your trip if you were taking a long distance trip like I did. The trip for me, and we did drive in a motorhome, was about 25 hours. After driving that distance, there's no way I would want to add a quarter more to that time, right? I mean, to me, that would be just unacceptable. That's really the reason I did not bring the Tesla on this trip. When you're doing a trip like that, at least if you're like me, you want to get where you're going as quickly as possible, right? I don't want to spend an extra 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is, sitting on the side of the road charging when I just could pull up, stick the gas nozzle in, 5 minutes later, maybe 10, I'm on the road. And that's the way I want it when I'm doing a long distance trip, right? But infrastructure-wise, if I had brought the Tesla this particular residence does not have a 240 volt charging receptacle available. Now, I could plug it into a 110 outlet, a normal household outlet, and then wait for, depending on how low the battery was, as long as a day or 3 days to charge the car back up. What a drag that would be, right? And that's then assuming that the place that I'm staying is going to pay for the electricity that I'm going to use to charge that car up. I mean, how are we going to figure out, what the bill is for that, as opposed to just going to a gas station? When you fill up, you know how much it costs, right? So there was no good way to be able to charge it at the residence. Now, I could have gone to superchargers, and that is where infrastructure really comes in, because where I'm at in Ohio, there are a lot more charging opportunities or stations around. Down in South Texas, there is one. Otherwise, you have to drive 30, 40 minutes, something like that, to charge it up, which I guess is not that bad, unless, of course, you live down there, and every time you want to fill up, you've got to go drive 30 or 40 minutes to get to a place to charge, should you not be able to charge at the one that happens to be in your area. That is why I think you see a lot more of them here, because there's a lot more infrastructure available. You don't have to worry as much about trying to find a charging station, unlike a gas station, to be able to charge up your vehicle, right? The other thing I think is kind of the culture that you're in, right? I mean, in Columbus, Ohio, I would say it's more of a yuppie area, I guess, for lack of a better term. More people are interested in electric vehicles as opposed to bigger gas-guzzling vehicles like trucks in deep South Texas. Everybody knows that Texas is like the truck capital of the world, right? I mean, they outnumber cars, I don't know by how much, but there are a lot more of them on the road. I do see Teslas occasionally, and I think the number's probably going to grow. The mistake that I think Tesla made is they created that ugly, nasty, expensive Cybertruck when they probably should have gone for something more traditional. I think if they'd have done that, they might have picked up more truck people who'd be interested in something electric. Obviously not everybody, and I know that electric trucks are not going to be the mainstream for folks who are diehard truck drivers, right? Pickup trucks I'm talking about. But nonetheless, I think they might have picked up more people had they created a traditional, maybe Rivian style, bigger of course, everything's bigger in Texas, but more of a Rivian style truck, more traditional looking and functional, I guess. The Cybertruck, nah. It's ugly, it's expensive, and I just don't think people, normal truck driving people like me, are really interested in those. Anyway, I just wanted to get on, talk a little bit about what I'm seeing where I am. Tons of Teslas on the road here. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me because it is a colder weather climate, or they do at least have a winter season here. You would think there'd be a lot more in South Texas, but there aren't. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. Is it due to weather? Obviously not. Or is it because of infrastructure and they just have more places to charge here, which makes it more convenient, I think, for people who actually want a Tesla and are not looking to install one, a charger that is, in their house. Maybe you live in an apartment or something and just don't have access to that. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.